My name is Sarah Mitchell and I've been hearing the same message my entire life. You're not capable. Not smart enough. Not disciplined enough. Not business-minded enough. My older brother Marcus was the golden child. Harvard MBA investment banking career, the son who understood real money. I was the disappointment who chose nonprofit work. Social services? Dad had scoffed when I graduated college. That's not a career, Sarah. That's a hobby for rich people's daughters. Which you are not. Mom was gentler but equally dismissive. Honey, we're just worried. How will you ever afford a house? Retirement? You need to think practically. They had a point, at least on paper. My starting salary at the youth advocacy nonprofit was $38,000. Marcus was pulling in $240,000 plus bonuses at Goldman Sachs. Family dinners became tournaments of comparison. Marcus just closed a $50 million deal. Dad would announce over pot roast. Sarah, how was your program? Mom would add, her tone suggesting I organized craft circles for bored teenagers. I stopped trying to explain that I ran intervention programs for at-risk youth across 3 counties. That I wrote grant proposals. That I testified before state legislators about funding. In their eyes, if it didn't generate wealth, it didn't generate respect. What they didn't know, what I never told them, was that my godfather was Richard Thornton. Not just any Richard Thornton. The Richard Thornton, President and CEO of Continental Trust Bank, one of the largest financial institutions in the state. Uncle Richard, as I'd called him since childhood. He'd been my father's college roommate. Best man at my parents' wedding. The successful one who went into finance while Dad chose middle management at a manufacturing firm. Their friendship had cooled over the years, especially as Uncle Richard's wealth grew and Dad's resentment deepened. Richard always was a show-off, Dad would mutter whenever Uncle Richard's name appeared in business journals. But Uncle Richard never forgot about me. When I was 8 and my parents said piano lessons were too expensive, Uncle Richard paid for them anonymously through my school. When I needed college recommendation letters, he connected me with nonprofit executives who became mentors. When I started my career, he called every few months to ask about my work. Genuinely interested in the programs I developed, the kids whose lives changed. You're doing real work, Sarah, he told me over coffee when I was 25. The kind that actually matters. Your parents will understand eventually. I wasn't so sure. But I kept going. And Uncle Richard kept quietly helping. Introducing me to foundation directors, connecting me to grant opportunities, teaching me how money and influence actually worked in the nonprofit world. By 32, I wasn't just running programs anymore. I was building something bigger. I'd noticed a gap in youth services. Plenty of emergency intervention programs existed, but nothing helped kids after the crisis. They'd get counseling, temporary housing, maybe job training, then get dumped back into the same circumstances that created the crisis. The recidivism rate was devastating. So I created the Foundations Project, a comprehensive support system that followed at-risk youth for 5 years. Education assistance, career mentoring, mental health support, housing stability programs, financial literacy training. Everything they needed to actually break the cycle. I started with 12 kids and a $200,000 grant I'd written myself. 3 years later, we served 847 young people across 6 counties with a $4.2 million annual budget. Our success rate was 73%, unheard of in this field. Kids who'd been written off as statistics were graduating college, starting careers, breaking generational poverty. Uncle Richard helped make the expansion possible. Not with his own money, he was careful about that, but by introducing me to philanthropists, teaching me how to pitch institutional investors, showing me how to build a sustainable nonprofit model that treated social impact like a business outcome. You're not asking for charity, Sarah, he coached me. You're offering them a 73% return on investment in human capital. Frame it that way. I did. And it worked. Major foundations started calling me. I testified before Congress about youth intervention models. Forbes ran a profile calling me one of the nonprofit sector's most innovative young leaders. My parents never saw the article. I didn't show them. At family dinners, I still sat quietly while they bragged about Marcus's latest promotion, his new Porsche, his Park Avenue apartment. When they asked about my work, I'd say, still doing the program. It's going well. Any raises? Dad would ask with that skeptical tone. A little, I'd lie. My actual salary was now $140,000, plus benefits. Not Marcus-level money but comfortable. More importantly, I had something Marcus would never have. Work that meant something. I'd also started investing using strategies Uncle Richard taught me. Nothing flashy, index funds, municipal bonds, a rental property I bought at auction and renovated. By 34, my net worth was around $680,000. Not Fortune 500 wealth, but more than my parents had accumulated in 40 years of marriage. They had no idea. And I preferred it that way. I wasn't hiding my success to be secretive, I was protecting it from their judgment. Because I knew if I told them, they'd find a way to diminish it. That's nice, honey, but Marcus's bonus this year was $400,000. So I stayed quiet. And I kept building. Everything changed at Marcus's engagement party. My brother was marrying Vanessa Chin, a corporate attorney whose family made my parents salivate with social climbing possibilities. The party was at their country club, the same one that had rejected my parents' membership application twice, which made this venue choice particularly satisfying for Mom. I arrived in a simple black dress, the same one I'd worn to 3 other weddings. Marcus wore a custom suit. Vanessa sparkled in something that probably cost more than my car. Sarah. Mom rushed over, her smile tight. You didn't bring anyone? Just me tonight. Still no boyfriend? Dad added. You know, Marcus met Vanessa through professional networking. Maybe if you expanded your social circle beyond those people you work with. Those people. He meant the kids. The families struggling with poverty and addiction and systemic failure. Those people who weren't worth networking with. I smiled. I'll keep that in mind. The party was predictably uncomfortable. I made small talk with Vanessa's relatives, who kept asking what I did with that polite but concerned tone people use when they suspect you're unemployed. Marcus gave a speech thanking our parents for their support, their guidance, their unwavering belief in his potential. He didn't mention me. Not even a generic sibling shout-out. Afterward, at the gift table, Mom pulled me aside. We need to talk about something. Dad joined her, his expression serious. Your mother and I have been discussing your financial situation. My stomach tightened. My financial situation is fine. Sarah, we know you're struggling. Mom's voice dripped with sympathy. Your salary, your student loans, that tiny apartment. We see the strain. I didn't have student loans. I paid them off 3 years ago. But they didn't know that. Dad continued, we've decided to help you. We're going to co-sign a loan for you. Get you into a proper home. Something you can afford. I don't need a starter condo, Mom interrupted. Nothing fancy. Just something appropriate for a woman your age. We've already talked to a realtor. This was classic. They'd made decisions about my life without consulting me, then presented it as generosity. We'll co-sign for up to $200,000, Dad said. That should get you something decent in a safe neighborhood. You can pay us back the down payment when you're more stable. The down payment. They planned to loan me money for the down payment, co-sign the mortgage, and position themselves as my financial saviors. The power dynamic was obvious. That's very thoughtful, I said carefully, but I'm actually in the process of buying a house already. Dad's expression shifted. What house? A place in Riverside Heights. The deal's almost finalized. Riverside Heights. Where homes started at $650,000. Marcus lived there. So did Vanessa's family. Sarah. Dad's voice hardened. That's impossible. You can't afford Riverside Heights. The mortgage is approved. I'm closing in 2 weeks. On what? Mom's voice rose. Sarah, be realistic. Your salary couldn't possibly. Continental Trust approved me for $725,000. The silence was deafening. Dad recovered first. That's fraud. There's no way you qualified for that amount. Someone made a mistake, or worse, you lied on your application. I didn't lie. Then someone at that bank is incompetent. His face reddened. This is exactly why you need our help. You clearly don't understand how finance works. That loan will destroy you. I can afford it. On $40,000 a year? Mom looked genuinely distressed. Honey, the mortgage alone would be. I don't make $40,000 a year. Your nonprofit salary is significantly higher than you think. And I have other income. Investments. Savings. I know exactly what I'm doing. Marcus had joined us now, drawn by the tension. Sarah, seriously, if you fraudulently obtained a mortgage, you need to come clean before it gets worse. I have friends who can help navigate this. His condescension was stunning. 30 seconds ago he was the finance expert. Now he thought I was a criminal. There's no fraud, I said evenly. The bank knows exactly what my financial situation is. They approved me because I qualify. Impossible. Dad was past reason now. I'm calling that bank Monday morning. This is predatory lending, or you've misrepresented yourself, or both. Either way, it stops now. Dad. This conversation is over. We'll handle this. He turned to Mom. Call Continental Trust first thing Monday. Demand to speak to whoever approved this disaster. And that's exactly what they did. Monday morning, I received 3 text messages before 9 a.m. From Dad, at Continental Trust. Resolving your situation. Stay by your phone. From Mom, honey, don't panic. We're fixing this mess. Love you. From Marcus, heads up, Mom and Dad are at your bank. Might want to give them a call before they blow up your credit. I stared at the messages from my desk at the Foundation's project headquarters. My assistant knocked on the door. Sarah? You okay? You look stressed. Family drama. I rubbed my temples. Can you give me a few minutes? Sure. But remember, you have the site visit at 11. The Foundation trustees want to see the new housing facility. Right. The $2.1 million expansion we just completed. The tour that could determine our next 3 years of funding. I couldn't miss it. But first, I needed to handle my parents. I pulled out my phone and texted Uncle Richard. Uncle Richard, my parents are in your lobby demanding answers about my accounts. They think my mortgage approval is fraud. They're demanding to speak to the bank president. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then I'm aware. They've been yelling at Jennifer and mortgage for 15 minutes. Should I intervene? I thought about it. The easy path was letting Uncle Richard shut this down with a phone call. But the easy path wouldn't teach my parents anything. Let them escalate. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Understood. This should be interesting. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. My assistant called after me. The site visit. I'll be back by 10:45. Promise. The drive to Continental Trust took 12 minutes. I parked in the visitor lot and checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Professional blazer. Simple jewelry. The look of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. I could hear my father's voice before I entered the lobby. The Continental Trust Bank lobby was designed to intimidate. 40-foot ceilings, marble floors, portraits of past presidents lining the walls. My parents stood at the customer service desk, Dad's face crimson, Mom wringing her hands. This is unacceptable. Dad's voice echoed. I demand to speak to your supervisor. No, your supervisor's supervisor. Get me the bank president. Now. The loan officer, her nameplate read Jennifer Hollis, maintained professional composure despite being verbally assaulted. Sir, I understand your concerns, but I've explained multiple times that Ms. Mitchell's loan was approved through our standard verification process. Her financial documentation was thorough and accurate. That's impossible. Dad slammed his hand on the desk. My daughter makes $40,000 a year. She couldn't qualify for a $725,000 mortgage. Someone here either committed fraud or was criminally negligent. I assure you, sir, our underwriting standards are clearly broken. My daughter doesn't have the income, the credit history, or the assets for this loan. This is predatory lending, and I will report this bank to every regulatory agency in the state unless someone with actual authority addresses this now. Mom touched his arm. Honey, maybe we should. No. This is exactly the kind of exploitation that destroys families. Someone approved our daughter for a loan she cannot possibly afford, and I want answers. I stood near the entrance, watching. Jennifer's eyes flicked to me, recognizing me from our closing preparations. I shook my head slightly. Not yet. Sir, Jennifer tried again. I cannot discuss account details with anyone except the account holder. Privacy regulations. I'm her father. She's clearly not competent to handle this herself, which is why she's in this mess. That's when I walked over. Actually, Dad, I'm completely competent. They spun around. Sarah. Mom looked relieved. Thank God. Tell them there's been a mistake. This whole thing is a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. Dad grabbed my arm. Sarah, listen to me. This bank has taken advantage of you. We're going to fix this, but you need to cooperate. Tell them you want to cancel the loan application. I'm not canceling anything. You don't understand what you're doing. His grip tightened. This loan will financially ruin you. The payments alone are well within my budget. On what income? His voice rose again. You make $40,000 a year. No, Dad. I don't. Your nonprofit salary is $140,000. Plus performance bonuses. Plus investment income from my portfolio, which has been growing steadily for 8 years. The lobby had gone quiet. Other customers were watching now. Mom's face went pale. Sarah, you can't possibly. I also own a rental property in Parkside that generates $3,200 monthly. I have $680,000 in liquid assets between retirement accounts, savings and investment accounts. My credit score is 812. The bank approved my mortgage because I'm an exceptionally qualified borrower. Dad's face cycled through emotions: confusion, disbelief, anger. That's impossible. We see your apartment, your car. You don't live like someone with that kind of money. Because I don't spend like someone with that kind of money. I invest it, save it, use it for things that matter. Then why didn't you tell us? Mom's voice cracked. All these years we thought you were struggling and you just let us believe it? You believed it because it fit your narrative. The disappointing daughter who chose passion over profit. The one who needed rescue. You never asked about my actual financial situation. You just assumed. This is insane. Marcus had appeared from somewhere, his lawyer fiancé beside him. Sarah, even if this is true, and I'm not saying I believe it, why hide it? Why let us think you were barely scraping by? Because every time I accomplished something, you diminished it. Every success became, that's nice, but Marcus did something better. So I stopped sharing. I built my life quietly without your judgment. Jennifer, the loan officer, had backed away from the desk, clearly unsure whether to intervene or disappear. Dad's voice dropped to something dangerous. I want proof. Financial statements. Tax returns. Because I think you're lying, Sarah. I think you've gotten yourself into debt pretending to be something you're not, and this mortgage is the final delusion. You want proof. I pulled out my phone. Fine. I opened my banking app, turned the screen toward him. My checking account balance. $47,329. Dad's eyes widened. I swiped to my savings account. $284,672. Swiped again to my investment account. $395,847. Mom actually gasped. That's. Marcus leaned closer. That can't be real. Call your bank, I said. Verify it. No. Dad's voice hardened. This proves nothing. Account balances can be photoshopped. I want official documentation from the bank president. Someone in authority who can confirm this isn't an elaborate fraud. You want the bank president? I kept my voice calm. Fine. I typed a text. Uncle Richard, my parents are demanding to speak with you about my mortgage approval. They want proof I'm not committing fraud. Would you mind coming down? The response came in seconds. On my way. The bank president will be here shortly, I said. Dad crossed his arms. Good. Then we'll get real answers instead of whatever story you've concocted. We stood in tense silence. Other customers had given up pretending not to watch. The lobby had become theater. 90 seconds later, the elevator chimed. Richard Thornton stepped out. 73 years old, silver hair, custom suit, the kind of presence that made rooms rearrange themselves. He'd been bank president for 22 years, CEO for 15. His face appeared on local business magazines quarterly. He walked directly to our group. Dad straightened, preparing his aggressive stance. Then Uncle Richard smiled at me. Sarah. Good to see you. And hugged me. Not a professional handshake. A warm, familial embrace that lasted 3 full seconds. Dad's aggressive stance faltered. Uncle Richard pulled back, hands on my shoulders. How are the expansion plans going? Did the foundation trustees approve the additional funding? They're touring the facility this morning. I think we'll get approval. Excellent. You've built something remarkable, Sarah. Your parents must be incredibly proud. He said it without irony, turning to acknowledge my parents for the first time. Dad's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Richard. David. Patricia. Uncle Richard's tone cooled 40 degrees. I understand you have concerns about your daughter's mortgage approval? That is, Richard, we didn't realize. Dad stammered. Didn't realize what? That Sarah is one of our most valued clients? That her financial profile is impeccable? Or that she's been banking with Continental Trust for 12 years under my personal recommendation? Mom found her voice. Richard, we thought. Sarah never told us. Told you what? That she built a $4.2 million nonprofit from scratch? That she's testified before Congress? That Forbes called her one of the most innovative leaders in the social impact sector? That she's financially secure, professionally accomplished, and frankly, a better person than most people I know. The lobby was dead silent now. Uncle Richard continued, his voice professional but edged with disappointment. Sarah qualified for her mortgage the old-fashioned way. Excellent credit, substantial assets, verified income, and a debt-to-income ratio that most of our clients would envy. Jennifer, he nodded to the loan officer, processed her application by the book. Everything was legitimate. Dad deflated visibly. But, we didn't know. That says more about you than it does about Sarah. The words landed like a slap. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Marcus stared at his shoes. Vanessa looked like she wished she was anywhere else. Uncle Richard turned back to me. I have a board meeting in 20 minutes, but lunch on Thursday? I want to hear about the expansion plans. I'd love that. Thank you, Uncle Richard. He hugged me again, then addressed my parents one final time. David, Patricia, your daughter is extraordinary. I suggest you start treating her that way. Then he walked back to the elevator, leaving devastation in his wake. The silence after Uncle Richard left felt like atmospheric pressure. Finally, Dad spoke. Uncle Richard? My godfather, I said quietly. Your college roommate. The man who was best man at your wedding. Since when? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Since when has Richard been helping you? He's not helping me. He's been a mentor. Someone who actually cared about my career. Who asked questions about my work instead of dismissing it. Sarah. Marcus stepped forward. I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I have a site visit in 40 minutes. I need to go. Wait. Dad grabbed my arm again, gentler this time. We need to talk about this. Really talk. About what? How you've spent 34 years telling me I wasn't good enough. How you came to my bank to prove I was a fraud. How you were so certain I was failing that you couldn't even consider I might be succeeding. We were trying to protect you, Mom said. From what? Success? Happiness? Or just from doing things differently than you expected? The loan officer, Jennifer, cleared her throat. If there's nothing else you need regarding the mortgage application? The application stands, I said. Closing is still scheduled for next Friday. Very good, Ms. Mitchell. She escaped to her desk gratefully. I turned to leave. Sarah, please. Mom's voice broke. Let us explain. Explain what, Mom? That you assumed I was incompetent? That you never once asked about my actual life? That you measured my worth against Marcus's bank account and found me lacking? That's not fair, Marcus protested. Isn't it? When's the last time anyone at a family dinner asked about my work with genuine interest? Not, how's your little program, but actual questions about outcomes, impact, growth. Silence. That's what I thought. I adjusted my bag. I have to go. My actual career requires my attention. I made it 3 steps before Dad spoke again. I'm sorry. I stopped. I'm sorry, he repeated, and his voice cracked. You're right. About all of it. We've been terrible parents to you, Sarah. We measured you against the wrong things. We dismissed what we should have celebrated. And we were so convinced of our own narrative that we couldn't see the truth right in front of us. I turned around slowly. Dad's face had collapsed into something raw. When Richard said those things, about what you've built, who you are, I realized I don't know my own daughter. Not really. And that's my fault. Not yours. Mine. Mom was crying openly now. We thought we were protecting you from disappointment. From choosing a path that would make life harder. But we were just wrong. About everything. I don't know if sorry is enough, Marcus added quietly. But for what it's worth, I'm sorry too. I never stood up for you. I just let them make comparisons. Let them diminish your work. I told myself it wasn't my problem. I stood there, 47,000 emotions fighting for dominance. The anger was justified. The hurt was real. But underneath it all was something else. An exhausted sadness that this was what it took. That they couldn't value me until a man they respected told them they should. I need time, I finally said. To process this. To figure out what relationship we have after this, if any. Of course, Dad said quickly. Whatever you need. But understand this. I'm not going to prove myself to you anymore. I'm not going to seek your validation or wait for your approval. I've built a life I'm proud of, and that doesn't change whether you acknowledge it or not. We understand, Mom whispered. Do you? Because 5 minutes ago you were convinced I was committing fraud. That's not a small thing to get past. We'll do better, Dad said. We'll earn back your trust. However long it takes. I nodded slowly. We'll see. Then I walked out of Continental Trust Bank and drove back to my actual life. The site visit went perfectly. The foundation trustees loved the new housing facility. 8 units for young adults aging out of foster care, with on-site support services and career counseling. They approved our funding request, $3.2 million over 3 years. My assistant found me afterward in my office, staring at my phone. Good news, she asked. The funding came through. That's amazing. But you look. My parents showed up at my bank this morning claiming my mortgage approval was fraud. Her eyes widened. What? I gave her the abbreviated version. Her reactions ranged from shock to outrage to something like vindication. So they finally know, she said when I finished. How does that feel? Honestly, I don't know yet. My phone buzzed. A text from Uncle Richard. That was perhaps the most satisfying moment of my professional career. Your father needed that wake-up call 20 years ago. Lunch Thursday at the usual place? I smiled and confirmed. Then a text from Marcus. I told Vanessa everything. She says what you've built is incredible and wants to know if her firm can help with legal services pro bono. No strings. Just trying to do something right. Then Mom. I spent the afternoon reading about the Foundation's project. Sir, I had no idea. I'm so proud of you. And so ashamed of myself. Can we talk when you're ready? Then Dad, I called Richard. Asked him to tell me everything I should have known about your career. I took notes. 2 full pages. I'm your father and I needed a stranger to tell me who my daughter is. That's unforgivable. But I want to change. If you'll let me. I set the phone down and looked out my office window at the neighborhood we served. Kids playing basketball on the court we'd built. Families entering the community center for our evening programs. Lives changing because someone decided they mattered. This was my measure of success. Not my parents' approval. Not Marcus's salary comparisons. Not even the mortgage on a house in Riverside Heights. This work. This impact. This proof that different paths could lead to profound destinations. My parents might never fully understand that. But maybe with time and effort they could learn to respect it. 3 weeks later I closed on the house in Riverside Heights. A beautiful 4-bedroom colonial with a yard and a study where I could write grants. My parents didn't attend the closing. I didn't invite them. But the day I moved in, a delivery arrived. Package from Mom and Dad. Inside, a framed photo from my college graduation. Me in my cap and gown, eyes bright with possibility. On the back, Dad had written in his careful handwriting. We should have believed in this person. We're sorry it took us so long. We love you. We're proud of you. And we're listening now. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. I hung the photo in my study, next to my Forbes profile and the photo of Uncle Richard and me at the Foundation's project ribbon cutting. Evidence that success comes in many forms. And that the best revenge isn't cruelty. It's building something so undeniable that even your doubters have to see it.